This is your world news broadcast to the headlines. Iran and Oman pledged to keep the Strait of Hormuz secure, but while Trump claims Tehran agreed to nuclear inspections, Iran denies the IAEA access to damaged sites. Also on news, President of the Republic Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune says Algeria and Spain are ready to turn the page, calls on the EU to open its markets to Algerian steel, and invites Omani companies to invest in Algeria. Violence is escalating in Sudan. Shelling in Al Ubaid has left people dead and wounded, and the UN is worried. On the other side of the coin, the army says it's retaken a strategic area in the Blue Nile. Welcome back. First off in our news tonight, the Tehran-Washington talks saw limited progress alongside disagreements over the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear program. Oman and Iran pledged to secure maritime security in the strait and discuss its future management, while President Trump warned Iran against any escalation.
Even as ship traffic in the Strait of Hormuz has picked up following Iran-US interim deal after months of interruptions in global oil supplies and rising inflation, questions still linger on who will control the waterway and whether vessels will be charged tolls to cross it. On Tuesday, Iran and Oman agreed in a joint statement to press on with discussions about the future administration of navigation in the strait, including maritime services in the strategic waterway and the costs associated with them.
There are also issues in the Strait of Hormuz. As you have seen, there have even been clashes on some nights. We agreed to establish coordination mechanism there, including a hotline and a center that can be contacted whenever there is any ambiguity or dispute.
The move appears to implement a provision of the Memorandum of Understanding signed last week that calls for Iran to hold talks with Oman and other Gulf coastal states on the future management of the navigation and maritime services in the strait. Iran's chief negotiator and parliamentary speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf, however, said the strategic waterway would remain under Tehran's administration and would not return to its pre-war status. In return, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that Iran would not be able to charge tolls in the Strait of Hormuz as part of any final agreement with the U.S., adding that such an agreement would be contrary to international law.
Well, that's the law. It's an international waterway. No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. That's existing international law. That's the way it is in international waterways all over the world, and that's the way we expect it'll be here. So I don't think we have anybody to convince around here in that regard.
With the fate of the waterway's future management still uncertain, legal experts and maritime associations have repeatedly stressed that a toll regime would append decades of international trade. In the meantime, the United Nations Shipping Agency says a gradual evacuation plan to enable hundreds of ships in the Gulf to sail through the Strait of Hormuz is underway, while shipping traffic slowly resumes through the critical trade corridor.
The Iranian Foreign Ministry said an agreement was reached on arrangements for upcoming rounds of negotiations. Deputy Foreign Minister Kazem Garib Abadi said talks focused on implementation mechanisms for the Islamabad Memorandum, following a meeting of the committee overseeing its execution. He added that the next rounds will include senior Iranian officials alongside representatives from the United States, Pakistan, and Qatar. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said the effectiveness of the talks depends on full commitment to agreed pledges and their precise implementation. In a post on X platform on Tuesday, he said progress will be measured by practical adherence to responsibilities, adding that statements diverging from the agreed text do not help advance negotiations. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian said Iran's missiles are not and will not be part of the agreement with the United States. In Islamabad, he added that Iran will not negotiate its defense capabilities and called for regional peace through dialogue and cooperation. For his part, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that he would do what needs to be done if Iran does not comply with this agreement with Washington. In media remarks, he warned that action would follow if Iran fails to adhere to the deal or, as he put it, does not behave appropriately.
If Iran doesn't live up to their agreement, or if they're not behaving, I will do what I have to do.
Iran Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai said Tehran does not plan to allow the IAEA inspections of damaged nuclear facilities. Baghai added that Swiss team did not meet with Grossi, but Iran will continue its NPT and safeguards obligations. Mariam Zian has more.
A day after U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said Iran had agreed to allow International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors back into the country as a first step toward permanent denuclearization, Tehran pushed back strongly against that claim. Speaking on Tuesday, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai denied that Iran had invited IAEA inspectors to visit key nuclear sites that were recently hit by U.S. and Zionist strikes, directly contradicting Vance's remarks.
We have had no meeting with Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and we have no plans for the agency to visit the Iranian nuclear facilities damaged by the military aggression by the United States and the Zionist regime. Fundamentally, no procedure has been envisaged in this regard.
Baghai said Iran remains committed to its obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and will continue to follow established international procedures. He also stressed that Iran's military and missile capabilities were never part of the negotiations and are not up for discussion.
Iran's defensive and ballistic capabilities have never been part of our discussions and will never be subject to negotiations with any party.
The Iranian spokesman also addressed questions about the country's recently released frozen assets. He said Tehran would decide how to use the funds based on what best serves Iran's interests, and rejected suggestions that any restrictions had been placed on how the money could be spent.
Regarding the Iranian assets that have been unfrozen, we will decide on the most beneficial and appropriate way to use them for the country. As for the purchase of goods, our Ministry of Agriculture and the other relevant sectors will decide on the approach they consider appropriate based on price and quality. Therefore, no restrictions have been imposed in this regard.
Baghai also said licenses related to Iranian oil sales officially took effect on June 22nd under the agreement, confirming that previously frozen funds are now accessible to Tehran and can be used without restrictions.
Still with the Middle East developments, the Lebanese Ministry of Health said on Tuesday that the death toll from the ongoing Zionist occupation aggression since March 2nd has risen to 4,192 martyrs and 12,171 wounded. It added that 17 civilians were killed and 7 others injured in occupation airstrikes across several areas of the past 24 hours. The Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said the death toll from the Zionist occupation violations has risen to 1,027 martyrs and 3,280 wounded since the ceasefire took effect. It added that hospitals received 4 martyrs and 20 wounded in the past 24 hours alone, bringing the overall toll of the war of extermination to 73,039 killed and 173,388 wounded. As summer temperatures rise and clean water stays scarce, residents of the Gaza Strip flock from their sweltering tents to polluted Mediterranean coast to bathe and wash their clothes. Sofian Kantour reports.
In the makeshift camps scattered across Gaza, life under plastic sheets had become increasingly unbearable. With no electricity and little protection from the summer heat, many displaced families rely on pieces of cardboard and improvised shelters in desperate attempt to stay cool. For tens of thousands of Palestinians, remaining inside overcrowded tents during the day is simply impossible.
We sit here in the street, between the tents, trying to stay in the shade, fanning ourselves all day with pieces of cardboard. There is no electricity, no fan, no water, and we can barely eat. The heat is unbearable. It feels as if we are living inside an oven. These children, as you can see, spend the entire day with me. This piece of cardboard is all we have to cool ourselves.
With wastewater treatment facilities severely damaged, large quantities of untreated sewage are flowing into the sea, polluting Gaza's beaches and raising serious health risks. Medical workers warn that exposure to contaminated water is already causing skin infections and other illness, particularly among children.
During the summer, the heat here is unbearable. If we stay inside the tents, the children develop allergies. Many of us are suffering from skin conditions we never had before because of the tents. We are covered in rashes and irritation. The area is polluted, and the heat comes from every direction. Inside the tents, it feels like a greenhouse. It is simply impossible to live there.
Despite the risks posed by polluted water, for many displaced Gazans, the search for relief has become another struggle and a daily battle for survival.
Moving on to another topical development or topical news story, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, affirmed Algeria and Spain's commitment to upgrading their bilateral relations to a higher level, expressing satisfaction with the current state of ties. During his visit to the Spanish pavilion at the 57th Algiers International Fair, he called for strengthening cooperation in desalination and wastewater treatment with a focus on developing local production of equipment and components.
Quels sont revenus. Le choix de l'Espagne comme invité d'honneur est un choix à la fois de la raison et du cœur. Ce sont deux pays très proches l'un de l'autre. Et on a constaté que, quoi qu'il y ait comme incompréhension, les choses se rétablissent très vite parce que c'est deux pays qui sont très très proches. Et puis, l'Espagne est une puissance économique. Véritable puissance économique et nous tirons beaucoup de choses positives de nos relations avec nos amis espagnols.
For his part, Spanish Secretary of State for Foreign and Global Affairs Diego Martinez Bello described Algeria as a strategic partner, stressing that Spanish companies are determined to expand their long-term presence in the country's market.
It is an honor for me to participate today and to accompany you in the opening of the Algiers International Fair. I wanted to personally thank you and the Algerian authorities for having thought of Spain as guest of honor this year. I believe this choice reflects the importance of the relationship between our two countries, which I don't hesitate to describe as a strategic partner of Spain. And this is reflected in the fact that Spain is strongly represented today with very important companies which have been present in Algeria since a long time and which intend to stay, invest, and reinforce their presence in Algeria.
President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, voiced hope for an agreement with the European Union to open its markets to Algerian steel. During a visit to the Toscali Algeria Pavilion, he praised the quality and competitiveness of Algerian steel, particularly in price and environmental standards, while criticizing EU quota restrictions on Algerian iron exports. He also noted that 85% of Algeria's imports come from EU countries.
Nous espérons toujours négocier avec l'Union européenne l'ouverture des frontières pour l'acier algérien. C'est pas normal qu'il y ait des quotas, parce qu'il n'y a pas de quotas pour ce qu'on achète de l'Union européenne. Jusqu'à présent, nos importations sont à 85% de l'Union européenne. Il ne faut pas qu'on nous fixe des quotas. On est ensemble. Il faut occuper rapidement le terrain pour faire le mélange. On a tous les arguments pour que l'Europe utilise l'acier algérien. Il est d'excellente qualité, il est très proche, on dégage moins de carbone.
During his visit to the Omani Pavilion, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune affirmed that cooperation between Algeria and Oman is wide open, expressing his satisfaction with the current level of relations between the two countries. President Tebboune invited Omani companies to expand their presence in the Algerian market and join the growing momentum in Algeria's concrete steel production sector.
يخص إنتاج الحديد تاع الخرسانة.
نعم.
فيه نقلة نوعية في الجزائر، ماذا بينا تنضموا لها.
إن شاء الله.
كما قلت هذا جلالة السلطان، المجال التعاون بيننا وبين سلطنة عمان مفتوح على مصراعيه.
بإذن الله تعالى وإحنا حاضرين.
ألف مرحبا بكل شيء.
يا هلا فيكم، جزاكم الله خير.
حتى بالنسبة للزيارة الأخيرة اللي قام بها السيد الفارق الأول، احنا مرتاحين كثير العلاقات نتاعنا مع سلطنة عمان.
جزاكم الله خير.
الله يدومها إن شاء الله.
بارك الله فيكم. بارك الله.
Visiting the Tunisian pavilion, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune praised the level of bilateral relations and noted Tunisian President Qais Said's strong will to revive his country's economy.
عند أخي قيس فيه إرادة قوية لبعث الاقتصاد التونسي من جديد، وإحنا رانا هنا سند له بالنسبة لأن الاستثمار يجيب الإنتاج ويفتح الباب للعاملة ويغطي الحاجيات نتاع الوطن بدون استيراد، ما فيه إلا المزايا.
At the Chadian pavilion, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, reaffirmed Algeria's commitment to implementing recently agreed projects in hydrocarbons and current production. He said Algeria is ready to build a cement plant as requested by Chad, alongside other joint projects, including an oil refinery and support for the electricity grid. He also highlighted the momentum in bilateral relations following the launch of the Algiers and N'Djamena route.
On ira encore plus loin.
On a plein de choses à faire.
Moi, j'ai donné ma parole à mon frère le maréchal Mohamed Debitno qu'on rattrapera le temps perdu avec le Tchad.
Merci,
Nous sommes d'accord pour la prospection pour le gaz et le pétrole.
On a related note, Mozambique's Secretary of State for Trade, Antonio de Rosario Crespo, said Algeria is a role model for economic development and trade, expressing his country's interest in benefiting from Algerian expertise and expanding the exchange of products between the two countries.
You guys have a lot of experience and very nice products, so fine with the global quality. Algeria is a role model to follow. And we want to seek this experience, to exchange our products, and to buy from you what Algeria is best to show. And Mozambique is say yes to that.
During his visit to the State of Palestine Pavilion, President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, expressed admiration for its participation in the 57th Algiers International Fair. He said Palestinian arts, industry, and traditional crafts reflect a rich cultural heritage, reaffirming that Palestine will remain steadfast until it achieves full independence.
هذا واجب احنا قلناها قضية فلسطين قضية وجدان بالنسبة للشعب الجزائري. الشعب الجزائري كله من أجل فلسطين، كبير وصغير مقاطع حتى العاجز.
نلاحظ كله شايفينه.
أتمنى كل الخير لفلسطين.
Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf held talks on Tuesday with the EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaya Kallas. According to the Algerian Foreign Ministry, the meeting reviewed cooperation between Algeria and the EU and stressed the need to activate cooperation mechanisms and advance upcoming commitments. They also exchanged views on regional and international issues of common interest. The United States congratulated Algeria on its removal from the Financial Action Task Force grey list. The U.S. Embassy in Algeria said it supports Algeria's efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, praising the progress achieved in this area.
The United States congratulates Algeria on its official removal from the Financial Action Task Force grey list. The U.S. Embassy in Algeria is proud to support the Algerian government's efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing. We are pleased to see the progress Algeria has achieved in this area and look forward to continuing our cooperation to strengthen transparency and financial integrity.
The head of the International Monetary Fund mission to Algeria praised Algeria's efforts to develop the hydrocarbons sector and improve its investment appeal, alongside projects balancing economic growth and environmental commitments. He said the IMF is closely following these reforms and supports efforts to strengthen economic stability and sustainable development. Turning to other news now, Moroccan army officers have arrived in the occupied Palestinian territories to join an international force in Gaza, according to the Trump-led Peace Council. The deployment began on June 18th and is expected to include policing and peacekeeping support. Morocco became the first Arab country to publicly commit police and military personnel to Gaza, amid criticism and warning that the decision could have long-term consequences. The Sudanese Doctors Network said 2 people were killed and more than 10 others injured in an RSF drone strike on a shelter camp in Al Obeid. In a statement on Monday, it said 19 people were wounded, including children and women, and condemned what it described as deliberate targeting of displaced civilians. The United Nations warned of a worsening humanitarian situation in Al Obeid, North Kordofan, as RSF attacks intensify and disrupt basic services. UN spokesperson Stefan Dujarric said repeated strikes hit facilities including a power station, fuel depot, and shelter, forcing several medical centers out of service. The Sudanese army said it has retaken the Bar area, a stronghold of the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North aligned with the RSF in Sudan's Blue Nile region. Military sources said troops carried out a large-scale sweep operation in surrounding areas, seizing weapons and equipment and capturing several fighters. To sports news now, the Algerian national team secured a 2-1 victory over Jordan in the second round of Group J at the 2026 World Cup, reviving its chances of qualification ahead of the final match against Austria. Coach Vladimir Petkovic said Algeria deserved the win, noting it boosts confidence before the decisive group fixture.
As I mentioned, we made a mistake from the start. Unfortunately, this can happen to us. I think we played 2 good matches, and we deserved this win, which gives us confidence and strengthens it ahead of the next game. Looking at the statistics, we completed 600 passes, had 72% possession, and took between 17 and 18 shots on goal. This is clear proof, especially against an opponent who showed solidarity until today, along with great harmony and a strong desire to win. At certain moments, we were technically excellent. It was a wonderful night, and we believed in victory until the very end.
For their part, Algerian national football team players said they deserved the victory over Jordan, stressing their ambition to continue strong performances at the World Cup, boosted by strong support from fans.
The win was extremely important for us. We did our job. Now we will recover properly, then return to Kansas City to prepare in the best possible way for the match against Austria. God willing, we will play a qualification match against them, and we will give everything we have. We don't know whether they were at their physical best, because apart from counterattacks, they did not create any dangerous chances, if I'm not mistaken.
And now it is time to catch up on more international news stories in the News in Brief by Hussein Burkan.
In Nigeria, police in the Central Plateau state say at least 20 people were killed in a weekend attack in a community in Bokos district. Authorities said security forces engaged the attackers in a fierce gun battle before they fled. The region, known for recurring ethnic and communal violence, has witnessed repeated deadly attacks despite increased security deployments. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the number of confirmed Ebola cases has risen to 1,048, including 267 deaths, according to health authorities. Officials say the virus continues to spread across the affected provinces, with Ituri remaining the epicenter of the outbreak. Authorities are strengthening surveillance, contact tracing, and medical response efforts to contain the disease. In Syria, wildfires have swept through wheat fields in the countryside of Qamishi, threatening one of the country's most important harvests. Residents and farmers rushed to contain the flames using water houses and basic tools as temperatures soared. Syrian officials say this year's wheat production is expected to rise significantly compared with last year, making the fires a major concern for the agricultural sector. In Pakistan, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian was awarded an honorary fellowship in cardiac surgery during his visit to Islamabad. The award was presented by Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif in recognition of Pezeshkian's contribution to public health, medical education, and scientific research. His visit comes as Pakistan continues efforts to support negotiations between Tehran and Washington aimed at ending the war in the Middle East.
Well, that's the end of our news program for tonight. But to catch up on any part you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms. On behalf of all 24 News team, I'm Islam Sid signing off. Thank you for watching. Good night.